Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting Propagandacast, another Monday night fight, or well, not night fight, it's afternoon fight, or cheerful bash, whatever, but it's the novice fight. Novices will be fighting, screaming, kicking, crying, whimpering, sort of figuring out where they went wrong and sending their game to me, the glorious Imperial Dane, hero of the Reich and defender of the fatherland. And today we're having a 1 versus 1, as some of you might already have guessed, Beaux Lowlands. Yes, indeed. I'm sounding quite excited. I'm quite refreshed, having had a few nice days back at my mother's home, house, or whatever you might describe a abode as. Whatever, though, of course, you didn't notice because I'm the usual type to actually be so dedicated. I'll even create a large sort of supply of casts before I do that, so I can just pop them off right for your viewing pleasure. But today it's a Monday novice fight, so it might be a bit late because I had a bit of trouble getting back to my own computer. My glorious Wunderwaffen, das Computer. But today, a 1 versus 1 Monday novice fight in the northern part. We shall be seeing Nicedestroyer of the... I don't know, let's say 52nd Volksgrenadier Division. Yes, indeed, Volksgrenadier will be fighting here in somewhere near Alsace-Lorraine. And opposing them shall be Arivior. Sounds French. Damn French. Wait, no. Let's not get dragged off on that. But he is here fighting for the 14th Armored Division. And let us get right down to the fighting. Zu der Krieg, und let us begin. And very slow start. Wehrmacht quarters going up from the Volksgrenadieren. From the Allies, we will be seeing a barracks, I hope. Barracks materialize, yes indeed. How great I am. Barracks going up for the 14th Armored, the Armored Infantry Division without the actual armored bits for it. Pushing ahead, or just Motorized Infantry Division, I suppose. Whatever. Wehrmacht quarters going up. Pioneers heading eastwards, Südost. And Engineers heading eastwards as well. All quiet as of yet. Barracks almost up. There we go, we'll probably be seeing some riflemen. Yes, indeed, riflemen, no weapon support, so that's usually not the best of starts to pop off with. Pioneers heading eastwards, continuing to head eastwards. Seems to be rather the fixation of the Germans to continually head eastwards, but let's not got stuck up on that. Engineers sort of spreading out, on the other hand, heading for either points, and this is good in particular right at this stage. It's going to give the Americans quite an advantage, since they can basically seize the entire west at their leisure. Well, of course, just delaying the Pioneers in the east if they do get to a bit of fighting there. And riflemen soon done, yes indeed, and we are seeing the first Volksgrenadier unit popping off. Heading, also eastwards, rather heavy sort of eastwards fixation with Nicedestroyer, of course, due to the AS. I sort of forgot the map introduction, but again, sort of late, short on time, at least if I want to get it up today. But again, sort of following the river, I suspect the sort of river contour, using that as the natural front line, not a bad idea. Of course, question is, will he be able to stick to that, or will he be running off otherwise to do other business? Individual riflemen are heading strongly westwards. In fact, they are running straight to the river. Apparently, they have something in mind. What could it possibly be that Arivior is up to with his forces? He's not even seizing points. He's taking a long detour just to get up here, or was he perhaps, probably he was more likely sort of scouting here, sort of to try to determine where the bloody hell is my opponent, where should I be focusing my force, and of course now he knows that the entire west is pretty much crowd free, so he figures the east. They will be in the east. I will send in my riflemen to do terrible things to the Germans in the east. Although it looks like Volksgrenadiers are now heading towards the west as well. Riflemen heading continually eastwards. Riflemen spotting a few strategic points right there. Engineers facing off against the dreaded Volksgrenadier Pioneers, or the Pioneers of the Volksgrenadiers, of course. And then they are, yes indeed, overwhelmed by dread and running away. But riflemen now are engaging the Pioneers, the Pioniere. And southwards, Volksgrenadiers are now out in the open against the riflemen. Volksgrenadiers, what will they be doing? No sandbags, no anything, trying to take cover behind some shrubbery. One goes down out in the middle of the road. His comrades unable to save him. And more riflemen arriving. The Volksgrenadiers are utterly surrounded, down to 4 men, awfully wounded already. And the riflemen, yes indeed, these riflemen do not move. They stand still, and of course standing still means bloody well more accurate. So good show there by Arivior. And again, that's sort of one of the key things to note as a novice player. Your troops are bloody well much more accurate on firing, and when it comes to shooting down units that are retreating, the key is usually, in some cases, not to try and continually hunt them down, but in some cases just standing still and getting that extra accuracy against those buggers. Pioneers running around, hiding inside the old empty barn, away from the sights of the riflemen, firing away, just going, haha, we have you Americans, but rather the rifleman figure, will we just run over to the side where the pioneers can't really hurt us? Well, not as much. In fact, they run to here. This is essentially the blind side of the barn. Otherwise, few windows elsewhere. But here, utterly unable to respond to the devilry of the Americana. Further, Volksgren is heading westwards. Apparently with some pioneers. No, it's just the same one. But Volksgren is fully reinforced. No, that's 3 Volksgren teams so far. But not a single MG42. No Maschinengewehr 42. Rather interesting so far. Not the usual thing. You actually see Volksgrenadiers facing off against the riflemen. Further riflemen on the way from Arivior and the 14th Armored Division. Riflemen getting gunned down. Volksgrenadiers firing away. Although they are taking some losses themselves. Oh dear, rather heavy losses again. Sometimes you need to know when to retreat. And this, very dangerous. Pioneers facing off against the engineers right here. The Pioneers could be able to get the drop. But no, Arivior is quick on the touch and gets his engineers out of there. And what else are the Wehrmacht going on about so far? Question is, what will Arivior go for now? He has 4 infantry teams. Basically, question is, will he go for BARs? Will he go for grenades and BARs? Perhaps weapon support center? Or will he be going straight for an armored car? Those are sort of all questions that are quite vital to ask. And now it looks like the Volksgunners are getting 1 rifleman team, and in this case, it's sort of again, no one to retreat, no one to stand and fight. And in the case of 9 Volksgunners versus 5 riflemen, the question is, retreat, don't move up close on those cases. Yes, I know riflemen do have the advantage up close, but that's usually in a 1-to-1 situation, not when you are outmatched by the Volksgunners, in which case they will do terrible, terrible things. In this case, no, they are. No, again, of course, heavy cover is direction now. The riflemen are engaging, and we are seeing BARs. The riflemen are utterly vacating the eastern half, although they have forced away the Krauts from the west. And we are seeing a Kampfkraft center up. Pioneers building away. So far, no further infantry, though, from Nicedestroyer of the 52nd Volksgrenadier Division, while his other Volksgrenadiers are continuing towards the east. So far, rather applying nicely to the Volksgrenadier bit. What else are we going on? Pioneers are ready. The flash of the Wehrmacht quarters and of the Kampfkraft center. That's rather interesting. We'll be going for the MG42, a sniper apply, or another Volksgrenadier. Tricky, tricky. Yes, indeed, a 4th Volksgrenadier team. This is rather of the rarer occurrences, in fact. I mean, you rarely see Wehrmacht commanders going for 4 Volksgrenadiers and not a single MG42. I'm not saying it's impossible, I mean, it's a bad idea, but of course it rather imposes some different sort of ideas and fighting behaviors upon you. And of course, he's probably, yes, indeed, going for veteranship 1. So the question is, what are his intentions specifically? And what is he actually hoping to achieve? In particular, now that he's going to be running into riflemen with BARs. That could result in some problems. Then again, if Mr. Nicedestroyer handled this properly, he could probably do some nasty things in return. But he's spreading out his Volksgunners. He's not keeping them close, in which case the riflemen will be having a much easier time overwhelming. Although it looks like 2 Volksgunner teams are here, while 1 rifleman team moves in to engage. And there we go, 1 Volksgunner team getting fired upon. Riflemen moving in, BARs blazing in the west, in the east. Volksgrenadiers firing back. These chaps need to move up to the first ones. Provide additional fire, not be sending them in piecemeal. Volksgrenadiers doing a bit of dueling. 1 down already. And these Volksgrenadiers are trying to take a point, but coming under fire in the middle of everything, in negative cover. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. You have to be careful about that. Negative cover means your troops are easier to hit and damage, meaning they are bloody big fat targets. And of course they move slower. Fighting continues right here, and these Volksgrenadiers, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, heavy losses, heavily wounded. On the other hand, suppressing the other 2 Volksgrenadier teams. Yes, indeed, this is one advantage with riflemen with BARs. They can use something called suppressive fire. Oh, right, that was 1 Volksgrenadier team cut down on the retreat. Pioneers moving in from the rear, flanking in with flamethrowers, salvaging the Volksgrenadiers' honor and their healths, and possibly ensuring that the uniforms don't get further soiled. Scorching the riflemen. Riflemen taking quite a few losses, down to 1 man with very little health. And jolly well he makes it out of there. Supply ant going up. A bit late with that, and Arivior is floating quite a bit of manpower. He could perhaps go for some more engineers, or perhaps, no, go for some fuel point observation post, but at the same time though he is laying down mines to actually protect these points. Not a bad idea so far, no doctrine from him. Volkskrone is heading northwards, seizing what they can there. Pioneers fanning out. And we are seeing mines there by Arivior, not a bad idea. And Nicedestroyer himself laying down mines, of course quite unaware that there's a mine awfully close. Volkskrone is getting reinforced. In fact, looks like he's gotten another Volkskrone team. It looks like he was actually planning for a rather Volkskrone heavy strategy. That's quite unusual. And a mine goes off, killing the Pioneer team. Oh dear. I don't want to be the one having to write those letters home. And Riflemen eyeing in the center, but looks like we are seeing a convergence of Volkskrone in towards the center. 3 Volkskrone teams, that's 15 of them. Even Riflemen with BARs won't be able to take that on, in particular since the Riflemen are surrounded, and MP40 is being equipped for the Riflemen, forcing the Riflemen into a quick retreat. Too much fire, particularly now with automatic fire being joined in. Other Riflemen moving in, but they are rather lacking in support, and Arivior needs to quickly do something with all of this manpower and all this fuel. He needs to invest it in something. I mean, it could be he's going for the tank depot, and that's certainly what I'd call a rather aggressive gamble at this stage. But at the same time, it wouldn't be exactly a bad idea to say go for airborne or even some rangers or something else. Just rather use all of that damn manpower. He could even have gotten an observation post on some of that fuel. But Riflemen are pushing onwards heavily in the east, securing quite a bit of territory, actually quite aggressive. And looks like Nicedestroyer is rather making one mistake already. I mean, he's trying to hold territory, which is alright, but Volkskrone being rather slightly more defensive infantry isn't quite meant to sort of hold everything, and that seems to be rather what his problem is. He's rather making one strategic blunder here. He's sort of trying to hold all of his territory rather than sort of deciding, well, what can I hold and what can't I bloody well hold. I mean, this would have sort of been easier. Sadly, he's sort of trying to hold all of this, and of course it's rather allowing the Americans sort of slip in wherever he wants to, although these Riflemen are running around the nasty gauntlet. And of course he's slipping in, taking what he can, and Nicedestroyer is constantly having to run around his forces, spreading them out, thinning them out, making them much easier targets. That's a bit of a problem for Nicedestroyer at this stage, and of course Arivior is so far rather using that nicely. Of course he could lay down some more mines, and looks like more mines have been detonated. No further mines being laid down. He's got quite the munitions for more. Riflemen heading in here to do a bit more harassment, perhaps hoping to steal some fuel points, or perhaps he's trying to stop these Volkskrone from seizing that point. But Sturm Armory perhaps getting some support from the 21st Panzer Division, and a tank depot up as well. Will be interesting to see what pops out there, but still floating quite a bit of manpower again. I mean, you have a quite strong advantage. Use it in some manner or form. But don't float around with that much manpower. Either get some more riflemen, get some more engineers, get some more something and use it. I mean, push the advantage. And that's rather what I can't help but feel Arivior is not quite managing in this stage. Volkskrone is taking quite a beating, but at the same time the Wehrmacht is actually still able to hold a nice comfortable amount of territory, because he then immediately counterattacks with a large force of flamethrower equipped something, or Volkskrone is with something automatic in terms of weaponry. So that's a bit of a slight problem Arivior is having. He's not able to really defend what he's taking either, which rather turns this into a game of cat and mouse. And while he has the advantage, at the same time he's not using it. That's a bit of a problem. What is Nicedestroyer's situation on the other hand? He's gone Blitzkrieg, Stormtroopers ready. Sonderkraftfahrzeug, heavy armored car, Sonderkraftfahrzeug 234. Ready to put the pain onto the American foe. There's nothing really to stop it, although, no. Tank depot is not flashing up as of yet. And there we go, armored car charging in on the American riflemen, firing away. And another Volkskrone team. He's keeping continually 5 infantry, at least trying to get that. This is still absolutely interesting. I'd say certainly now has the infantry numerical advantage over the Americans, and the armored car will certainly make things a lot harder for the riflemen with the BARs. Again, a sort of mismanagement of resources. I mean, again, no real attempt at really investing that manpower into something that would give him some advantage, and perhaps to make things harder for that armored car. But there we go. The Hellcat is ready. Hellcat ready to take on the Puma. Cat versus slightly bigger incendiary Cat. And the armored car almost out. There we go. Machine gun emplacement. In fact, knocks it out. Crashes into the barracks. And looks like an entire Volkskrone team was cut down by these rather stalwart Americans. Nicedestroyer is suffering quite some losses, and again, down to 4 Volksgrenadier teams. I can't help but feel that's a bit of a mistake right there. And now he's floating quite a bit of manpower and fuel. But again, Arivior is not really managing to push any sort of advantage or make it harder for the Wehrmacht to actually move anywhere. Oh dear, my nose. Hellcat moving in, having hit the Wehrmacht mine. I do believe that was the only mine the Wehrmacht has actually laid down on the map. Volksgrenadier is coming under fire. Riflemen moving in to support the Hellcat. Volksgrenadiers are just standing out in the open, being easy targets. 50 cal machine gun up for the Hellcat, making things a lot harder for the Volksgrenadiers. Will they survive? No, they will retreat after ending this point neutral. And we are seeing assault grenades on the riflemen, forcing them into a full retreat. Well, that was rather short-lived. In the meanwhile, the east is currently in the hands of the Wehrmacht of the 52nd Volksgrenadier Division. Hellcat needs repairs. Riflemen getting these Volksgrenadiers quite across open territory, though. Taking a bit of a beating, but there we go. Volksgrenadiers now are themselves taking rather heavy losses. But I would recommend an engineer team to repair this Hellcat before it's too late. And looks like Nicedestroyers going straight for the Panzer Command. Americans going for the center. Riflemen moving in the east, forcing the Volksgrenadiers their way, doing quite a bit of damage to these MP40 equipped chaps. Volksgrenadiers were actually fully equipped with submachine guns, or at least they had rather large forces equipped only with submachine guns. Problem was, though, well, automatic weapons was they were actually supposed to be Sturmgewehrs, that is assault rifles, but in some cases they just couldn't get it, so they had to do with submachine guns like the MP40. Otherwise, the usual sort of division was more like the upgraded Volksgrenadier team. That is mostly rifles, a few automatic weapons to sort of increase the overall firepower of the squad, but nothing like excessively all MP40s or STG-44s.
Yes, comrade.
And again, for Volksgrenadier teams, we are seeing access to the Panzer Command has been granted, battle phase is reached, but still quite a bit of manpower. Could be calling in stormtroopers to sort of augment his forces. He could be doing anything really, but apparently not. Nothing going on in the tank depot. I do believe it's the time for the mid-game analysis. What is the current situation? Well, currently the Americans actually again hold most of the map quite impressively. Does he still only have... He's again still floating quite a bit of resources. Very bad again. Don't float resources like that. Always try to invest in it. Try always to push the advantage. And then you have something very specific in mind. And some things tell me Arivior doesn't quite have something specific in mind. But let's not get stuck up on that. On the other hand, the Wehrmacht is going for rather unorthodox strategy of a lot of Volksgrenadiers.
Yes,
I'm not going to say it's bad, but it's certainly unorthodox. I could certainly imagine some things working for it. Although usually you actually see a sort of medic bunker going up to sort of really capitalize on it, really sort of get some Volksgrenadier wounded picked up and then turn into some more veteran grenadier teams. But that's again sort of what some people do. It doesn't mean you have to do it. But still floating a bit of manpower, floating a bit of fuel. Invest it, do something with it. Just don't sort of float resources like that. It's never helpful. But currently the Americans, though, in terms of map, has the most of the advantage. The Wehrmacht forces, though, are leading with a rather huge Volksgrenadier counterattack. As we've sort of noticed, question is, where will it hit? And what will it do? And will it be enough? Because again, currently the Americans are holding most of the map. But let's return to Nicedestroyer, the 52nd Volksgrenadiers.
Victory point captured. The Riders are sick of it now, pioneers.
Oh well, oh well. And there we go, 20 Volksgrenadiers embarking on a glorious assault for the fatherland. Albeit it looks a bit like a massed assault, which was rather what some of the Volksgrenadiers were forced to by the end, since the Volksgrenadier divisions were lacking in qualified NCOs and officers, which meant rather tactics went down the drain. Still, I still like to see Wehrmacht officers do proper tactics. Generally, any officer should be doing proper tactics and such. And there we go, equipped fully with submachine guns. And these riflemen, oh dear, and they're trying to hide inside the building, of course. Volksgrenadier submachine guns actually, well, submachine guns in general are less effective against units. Oh dear, force right past them. Although looks like the riflemen will be making out of there mostly intact. By mostly intact, I mean the infantry team isn't entirely wiped out. That was still quite nasty. The Volksgrenadiers did so without suffering much in terms of losses. But what is this? Sherman tank is ready. Good show. Finally some more serious armor. Hellcat is still not repaired. And the Panzer Command on the way. After engaging off against these Volksgrenadiers, have to retreat, pull back. Flamethrowers advancing and standing out in the open. But now the Sherman is on the way, not entirely sure what is driven up there. And rather things seem to be going a bit off for Arivior. Can't help but figure there's a bit of an awkwardness in coordinating his actions. Rather than standing about, I mean, don't have passive infantry doing nothing. It rarely achieves anything now. Of course, you'll have a lot of riflemen to be reinforced. The Sherman to push onwards if he can get it there. Can't help but feel that things are going a bit slack for Arivior, and he's not really pushing when he ought to be. He's not fighting when he should be. Pioneers and Volksgrenadiers converging on the center where only a single team of engineers with a flamethrower standing. They'll be fighting quite off bit, and 1200 or close to 1200 manpower again. Don't float that much resources. I mean, this is rather again, that's why it's a novice fight. There's quite a bit of resource floating on either side. It's not going to do you much good. I mean, call in Stormtroopers, call in the Stu 42, call in something. Just don't float that many resources. It's not going to help you in the long run.
The enemy advances.
In particular, not when the opponent can take most of the map if he could actually get his own act together and seize it. That, of course, is the main problem. He's not. Arivior is doing pretty much the exact same thing, which is giving his Wehrmacht opponent this great advantage. Otherwise, Arivior could in fact be taking most of the map, thus denying Nicedestroyer the actual population capacity to actually create any further units. So rather some great mistakes on either side in terms of resource management. I mean, this is part of your strategy. I mean, that's resource management. That's part of how you actually pull things off, and that rather involves you don't float about this much in terms of resources. Kindly do not do that. That's something you should always try to sort of work on in some manner or the other. For example, just saying, well, I'm just going to be spending resources if I go come upon us higher than a certain point and I don't know what to do with the resources. I'll just make something. I don't know what, but I must make something. Basically, just train yourself to actually spending resources. After a certain point where you basically don't know. I mean, if it's somewhere around 500 man-force, a lot of fuel, and you're basically going, well, I don't know what to do with all this. Spend it. Get some infantry. Get some armor. Just get bloody something. Now we are seeing a Panzer IV arriving on the field. Pioneers heading centerwards. Look, they're putting up a mine. Although right in front of the enemy. That's what you call bad. Because laying down mines makes you an easier target. And Stu 42 arriving. Volksgrenadier charging through in the east. Hellcat still not repaired. I mean, repair your damn armor, Arivior. You're not really doing the Americans any credit by showing that, yes, they had a bit of a tendency. You're not really repairing the armor, just throwing it out and getting some new bits, at least partly. I know they do this with the aircraft. And there we go. Panzerkampfwagen 4 of the 21st Panzer Division. Ready to put the fear of the fatherland into those damn Yankees. And of course the Stu 42 ready to provide some rather devastating fire support with its 105mm howitzer. Further Stus arriving. My goodness, that seems rather excessive. But let's return to Arivior, who has 5 rifleman teams in fact. Quite a few Shermans, a Hellcat, but he's not moving in to actually react to this area. I can't help but feel. Hellcat still, and there we go, Panzer IV, but
Germans are seizing territory.
And now he is moving in the Sherman tank, but he ought to be moving in more assets. I mean, for example, ought to be moving in his troops to sort of counter this threat, rather than facing off the German armor piecemeal. I mean, this is a bit of a problem, and yeah, turn the front against enemy armor at all times. Although again, if you're the Americans facing off against German armor, the key should generally always be to sort of flank the armor. But again, you have armor right here. Use it, mate. Pull it in. Pull it in. Assist. And rather than now, there's going to be quite a bit of firepower bearing down on the Sherman. Pioneers repairing the Sherman. Oh, the Panzer IV. Which is rather going to leave this badly for the Sherman. In particular, as 2 howitzer guns will be firing at it. And while they won't be able to do much with a Panzer IV combined, it's still going to do something even with the field repairs on. And why isn't he focusing down on those Pioneers? I mean, Pioneers repairing are much easier targets. It would be easier in the long sense and make more sense to just knock those out. Kill them right away. Priorities, mate. Priorities are quite an important bit. And a third Stu 42. Alright, again, Novice Monday fight. I mean, 3 Stu 42s is absolutely ludicrous. Beyond even sensible. And there we go. Some American forces are arriving, but this is looking really bad for the American commander. He's sort of throwing his armor at the opponent piecemeal, and he's not really amending much. Volkswagen is running at the rifleman. Sherman sort of slowly going on. Main gun upgraded. He has gone for armor, by the way. But he looks like he's saving up for something, perhaps a Pershing. Sherman with a damaged engine, but again, he hasn't bothered to repair it. And now his riflemen are just standing about because, again, he's lacking a coherent battle plan. Everything's falling apart. Sherman moving in, but it's getting hit from the rear. Other Sherman unable to really respond because, again, damaged engine. Sherman could with its main gun upgrade. Yes, there we go. Stu 42 down, but that's it. Panzer IV upgraded. And this is rather what I call bad. No further Shermans at this stage. No further anything.
The Germans are taking one of our points.
And Sherman facing off against the Panzer IV, and an upgraded Sherman is actually quite a force, at least against Panzer IVs and Stu 4s. But that's about it. It can at least do a bit more of a reliable job. The Stu 42s are tearing apart the American base. Sherman versus Panzer IV. Who shall win? No upgrades though for the Panzers in terms of veterancy. And something tells me this is going to be the death knell for Arivior. Sherman not having quite much luck with the Panzer IV. And again, it can't really achieve any sort of mobility because there's a lack of, and a functional engine, because again, Arivior didn't repair it. Now the Panzer IV is just charging ahead, perhaps hoping to flank the Sherman. Could be it, could be nice. American base getting slowly dismantled by the heavy assault guns, the Stu 42s. There we go, rear armor hits. Panzer IV could actually get knocked out by the Sherman if it gets around. Pioneers killed.
At this rate, we'll be taking Berlin by Christmas.
And there we go, destroyed engine on the Panzer IV. Panzer IV misses. Looks like another one is ready, and the Sherman is unable to hit back. Oh dear, the Panzer IV is getting away, and Arivior is forgetting all about it. Oh dear. I'd say that's a catastrophic failure in priorities. Not really good. I mean, he could have knocked out that Panzer IV and really eased things up, but no, he didn't, and now he's, well, I suppose trying to salvage what is left of his base, but that's not going to help much. If that Panzer IV might be joined up by a second one, which could provide quite a bit of nasty firepower against that single Sherman. Headquarters knocked out, engineers ready to be sent in for support, but is it going to help? Not sure. And well, at this stage, I mean, I might as well say this, it's game over. I mean, Arivior has lost. He did quite well in the start, then sort of threw it all away. So let me spoil the ending for you. The Butler did it. Yes, indeed, the Butler betrayed the Allies. No, he didn't. It was Voldemort. No, again, no, it's not. It's just a loss for Arivior. The 14th Armored Division was beaten back by the 52nd Volksgrenadier Division with support from the 21st Panzer Division. And really, there's not much need. I mean, we have already seen the vital lessons, which of course include partly, don't serve your armor piecemeal against the enemy. That's French tactics, and if anyone remembers the history lessons, the French lost the war. Yes, they sort of came back, but that's still, I mean, they had the best tanks in the beginning of the war, and they sort of threw that away. So again, don't go piecemeal with your tanks against the enemy if you have more than one. I mean, had he moved that in, that Sherman, more probably quickly, he could probably done something. But again, that came down to another major problem of Arivior. He didn't repair his bloody tanks. They had damaged engines, but he didn't do anything. They were unable to really to respond then, which rather also created the problem. Of course, there was the last bit. Don't engage German armor from the front. Very bad. Otherwise, we saw some good aggression from Arivior from the beginning, constantly running about, and we saw that strategic failure from Nicedestroyer, which was rather he tried to hold too much. But again, Arivior then came upon another failure. He didn't exploit the advantage. He didn't get enough resources out and you spend them. He didn't take points. He didn't lay down enough mines. Rather tragic. We saw several mistakes here. Many I'd certainly describe as quite vital to sort of learn how to avoid, like for example, floating resources in such a great amount and with such consistency. Failure to sort of understand how the map works. In this case, you don't want to sort of hold more than 3 unless you can seriously hold them. Otherwise, it's better to sort of try and hold 2 and then sort of make probing attacks at the enemy rather than sort of running about, which will only aid the Americans. But in this case, the Americans aided the opponent by not pushing the advantage. Then, of course, we had this sort of failure in armor methodology, which again only worked to the advantage of the Wehrmacht, which had only 1 Panzer IV, but still somehow managed to do quite a bit with it. Bad. Again, very bad. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed this fight. If you did, why not subscribe or tell your friends? And if you didn't, well, why not send in a replay of your own? This is Imperial Dane saying cheers.